Have you ever wondered what money is and where it comes from? The paper in your wallet is worthless. Not metaphorically, literally worthless. A piece of cotton and linen that governments agreed to call valuable. And right now, that shared delusion is the only thing standing between civilization and chaos. In the next 12 minutes, you're going to understand what money actually is. And once you do, you'll never look at a dollar, a euro, or a bank account the same way again. Here's something your economics teacher never told you. Money was never invented, it evolved. And the story of that evolution tells us more about human psychology than about finance. Go back 10,000 years. A farmer has grain. A fisherman has fish. They want what the other has. Simple, right? They trade. This is called barter. And it sounds logical until you realize the farmer only wants fish on Tuesdays, and the fisherman doesn't need grain in July. Economists call this the double coincidence of wants problem. But here's a simpler way to put it. Barter is a logistical nightmare. Imagine trying to pay your rent in chickens. So ancient societies got creative. Cowrie shells in China, cacao beans in Mesoamerica, whale teeth in Fiji, enormous stone discs, called ray, on the island of Yap, so big they couldn't even be moved. The Yapese would transfer ownership by announcement. The stone never budged, but somehow everyone agreed it counted. This is the first clue to what money really is, and it has nothing to do with gold, government, or banks. We'll come back to exactly what that is in a moment. But first, we need to talk about the greatest magic trick in human history. A trick that's still running today. A trick that you are, right now, participating in, whether you realize it or not. In 600 BC, the Kingdom of Lydia, modern-day Turkey, minted the first standardized coins. Electrum, a natural alloy of gold and silver, stamped with the king's face. And something extraordinary happened. People stopped arguing about value. The coin said what it was worth. The king guaranteed it. Trade exploded, cities grew, empires rose. But here's where it gets strange. Here's where the magic trick begins. Goldsmiths noticed that people stored their gold with them for safekeeping. In return, they handed out paper receipts. This note entitles the bearer to X grams of gold. And people began trading the receipts instead of the gold itself, because carrying a piece of paper was easier than lugging metal around. The goldsmiths noticed something else. People almost never came back for their gold all at once. So the goldsmiths started issuing more receipts than they had gold, lending out receipts for gold that didn't exist, collecting interest on money they had invented. Out of nothing, you just watched banking be invented. Right there. In that sentence. And the modern banking system still works on the same principle today. Banks do not lend out deposits. They create new money digitally every time they approve a loan. The Bank of England confirmed this in 2014. In their own words, whenever a bank makes a loan, it simultaneously creates a matching deposit in the borrower's account, thereby creating new money. Let that sink in for a second. The money you borrowed to buy your car, your house, your education, it didn't exist before you signed the contract. Which raises a terrifying question. If banks can create money, what stops them from creating infinite money? What is actually keeping the entire system from collapsing right now? We'll get there. But first, what is money really? Because we've been circling the answer and it's time to say it out loud. Money is a collective hallucination. That is not a metaphor. That is a functional description. Yuval Noah Harari calls it an intersubjective reality. It doesn't exist in the physical world, like a rock or a river. And it doesn't exist only in one person's imagination, like a dream. It exists in the shared story that millions, now billions, of people believe simultaneously. Here's the proof. Zimbabwe, 2008. Inflation reaches 89.7 sextillion% per month. A loaf of bread costs 550 million Zimbabwean dollars. People wheelbarrow cash to buy groceries. Then, the government stops printing. They adopt the US dollar. Overnight, the hallucination resets. A new story begins. The physical stuff didn't change. The farms were still there. The people were still there. What changed was the story, the shared belief in what counted as value. This is why gold worked. Not because gold is inherently valuable. You can't eat it, you can't build shelter with it, it doesn't keep you warm. Gold worked because everyone agreed it was scarce, durable, and divisible. The agreement came first. The value followed. So money has 3 jobs. 3 things it must do to function as money. 1. A unit of account. It measures value. 2. A medium of exchange. It facilitates trade. 3. A store of value. It preserves purchasing power over time. Every form of money in history, from cowrie shells to Bitcoin, has succeeded or failed based on how well it performs these 3 functions. And here is the answer to our open question. What stops banks from creating infinite money? 2 things: inflation and trust. When too much money chases too few goods, prices rise, the currency loses credibility, and the shared story starts to crack. Central banks exist, supposedly, to prevent that crack from becoming a collapse. Which brings us to the question that started all of this. If money is just a shared story, why does it matter so much? Why do people kill for it, die for it, sacrifice decades of their lives chasing it? The answer might surprise you. Money matters because trust scales. One human can trust another human directly, but a village of 1,000 people can't all verify each other's reputation, history, and intentions. Money solves that problem. It is trust, made portable. When you hand someone a $20 bill, you're not giving them cotton and linen. You're transferring a unit of social trust. You're saying, I did something of value for society. This certificate proves it, and you can use it to claim something of equivalent value from someone else. The whole system is a civilization-scale ledger of who did what for whom. This is why counterfeiting is considered so dangerous. It's not just theft. It's an attack on the shared story itself, on the collective trust that makes modern life possible. Every fake bill dilutes the system's credibility, not just for the person who received it, but for everyone. And this is why monetary policy is one of the most powerful forces on the planet. When the Federal Reserve changes interest rates, it isn't adjusting a number in a spreadsheet. It is recalibrating the shared story, shifting how much future value costs, how much it's worth to save versus to spend, whether it makes sense to build a factory or sit on cash. The decisions made in that building in Washington or in the European Central Bank in Frankfurt ripple out to affect whether someone in Lagos can afford to import medicine, whether a family in Jakarta can keep their savings from evaporating, whether a retiree in Ohio wakes up tomorrow to find their pension worth less than yesterday. And now, right now, we are living through the most significant monetary experiment in human history. Digital currencies, algorithmic money, a decentralized ledger that no government controls. The story is being rewritten in real time. And whether Bitcoin or a central bank digital currency or something we haven't yet imagined becomes the future of money, the fundamental truth won't change. It will only work if enough people believe in it. So, what is money, really? It is a story, a shared fiction that humanity agreed was more useful than the alternative, a world where you had to find someone who wanted exactly what you had, exactly when you had it. It is portable trust. It is civilization's operating system. It is the most successful collaborative hallucination our species has ever produced. And the moment you truly understand that, the moment you stop seeing money as a thing and start seeing it as a relationship, you begin to see the economy not as a machine, but as a story. One that can be written differently. One that, in many places, is already being rewritten. If this changed how you think about money, share it with one person who needs to hear it. And if you want to go deeper, the next video covers how central banks actually control inflation and why they sometimes deliberately let it run. See you on the next one.